In a galaxy on the brink of total war, one impossible love could change everything, or destroy it all. When human diplomat Marcus Kane meets Allery, his alien translator, their connection sparks a chain reaction that threatens to alter the fate of two civilizations. As secrets unravel and trust becomes a weapon, they must choose between their hearts and the survival of their species. What decision will they make when the universe demands the ultimate sacrifice? Stay until the end to discover how love can bloom even in the coldest depths of space. Don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling sci-fi stories. The stars burned cold through the viewport of the diplomatic cruiser as Marcus Kane reviewed his briefing documents for the 100th time. The KFAR delegation awaited him on the neutral moon of Epsilon 7, and humanity's future rested on what he would say in those negotiations. 3 years of escalating tensions had brought both species to this moment, the final attempt at peace before weapons spoke louder than words. His fingers traced the edge of the data tablet, remembering the faces of colonies lost to KFAR aggression. Yet orders were clear: find common ground or face extinction. Commander Harris's voice crackled through the calm, breaking his concentration. Kane, we're approaching the rendezvous point. Your translator is ready. Marcus straightened his uniform, feeling the weight of responsibility press heavier with each passing second. He'd negotiated dozens of treaties across human space, but this was different. This wasn't just another border dispute or trade agreement. This was survival itself hanging in the balance. The KFAR weren't merely opponents. They were an ancient civilization whose technology dwarfed humanity's achievements, yet their motives remained as mysterious as the void between stars. As Marcus stepped into the preparation chamber, he caught his first glimpse of Allery. She stood by the viewport, her crystalline form catching the light in ways that defied physics. Unlike typical KFAR who appeared as shifting masses of energy contained within biomechanical shells, she possessed a humanoid figure enhanced by subtle alien features: iridescent skin that shimmered like oil on water, eyes that seemed to contain entire galaxies, and hair that floated as if suspended in zero gravity. Her presence commanded attention without effort, and for a moment, Marcus forgot the gravity of their mission. I am Allery, she said, her voice carrying melodic undertones that resonated deep within Marcus's chest. Designated translator and cultural liaison for these proceedings. Despite her formal words, there was something in her gaze, a flicker of emotion that didn't match the stoic demeanor expected from a KFAR representative. It unsettled him, though he couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was the way she lingered on certain syllables, or how her luminous eyes seemed to look beyond his physical form, reading truths he hadn't spoken aloud. Their initial exchange felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. Every word carried potential consequences. Every gesture held hidden meaning. Allery moved with calculated precision, her movements almost too perfect, as if choreographed by some cosmic force. Yet beneath this carefully maintained facade, Marcus detected moments of genuine curiosity: the slight tilt of her head when he mentioned Earth's oceans, the way her bioluminescent patterns brightened during discussions about human art and culture. These small signs of individuality contradicted everything he'd been taught about the KFAR's hive mind mentality. The conference chamber on Epsilon 7 existed in permanent twilight, its walls lined with crystals that pulsed gently, casting ever-changing patterns across the room. At the center of this alien cathedral, the negotiation table hovered slightly above the floor, its surface displaying constellations that neither human nor KFAR recognized. Marcus took his seat opposite High Counselor Vorthkai, the leader of the KFAR delegation, whose massive form radiated an intimidating presence despite its ethereal appearance. Beside him, Allery stood poised between worlds, her role as translator becoming increasingly complex with each passing hour. Their first formal session revealed fundamental differences that threatened to derail the entire process. The KFAR viewed territory not as physical space, but as dimensional resonance frequencies, making human concepts of borders meaningless to them. When Marcus presented maps of contested regions, Vorthkai responded through Allery with arguments that sounded, to human ears, like metaphysical poetry rather than diplomatic discourse. Your claims are shadows cast upon the quantum fabric, Allery translated, her voice perfectly modulating the counselor's complex thoughts. They hold no substance against the symphony of existence that is our birthright. Yet amidst these philosophical impasses, Marcus began noticing something remarkable about Allery's translations. She didn't merely convert words, she wove context and nuance into each sentence, creating bridges where none should have existed. During breaks, she would quietly explain to Marcus how certain Kvar phrases carried layers of meaning based on historical resonance and psychic imprinting. When Vorthkai says quantum fabric, she whispered during one recess, he refers to the ancestral memories encoded in stellar radiation patterns. To the Kvar, your maps appear as vandalism upon their sacred history. These insights transformed their working relationship into something deeper and more dangerous. Late-night strategy sessions became intimate exchanges of understanding, where professional boundaries blurred into personal connection. Marcus found himself drawn to the way Allery's bioluminescence shifted hues when she grasped a particularly challenging concept, or how her crystalline features softened when discussing Kvar cultural artifacts. In turn, she seemed fascinated by his explanations of human emotions and the biological imperatives driving their species' expansion. Their growing bond manifested in subtle ways that both thrilled and terrified them. During formal sessions, they developed a silent language of glances and micro-expressions that conveyed volumes of unspoken information. When Marcus struggled to comprehend a particularly abstract Kvar concept, Allery would adjust her translations not just for accuracy, but for emotional impact, knowing exactly which human references would resonate most effectively. This synchronization worried both their respective delegations. Humans saw potential betrayal in such rapport, while the Kvar interpreted it as contamination of their pure diplomatic process. The situation reached a crisis point when Admiral Chun, leader of the human military contingent, confronted Marcus after a particularly intense session. "You're getting too close to that thing," he growled, using the derogatory term deliberately. "We've intercepted communications suggesting the Kvar consider her your handler, not your translator." Marcus wanted to argue, to defend the invaluable bridge Allery had become between their species, but doubt crept into his mind. Was their connection truly mutual, or had he fallen victim to some sophisticated manipulation technique? The revelation came during a routine security sweep of their quarters. Marcus had returned early from a meeting to find Allery studying classified human documents on his private terminal. For a moment, time froze as their eyes met across the room, hers filled with something between guilt and determination. Before he could speak, she activated the privacy field, enclosing them in a bubble of silence. "There is something you must understand," she began, her usual composure cracking like fractured crystal. "I am not merely a translator. I am one of the chosen, those rare individuals among my people who can influence collective decisions through direct neural interface with the overmind." Her confession unraveled hours of carefully constructed trust while simultaneously explaining mysteries that had haunted their interactions. The Kvar operated through consensus consciousness, their individual identities subsumed into a greater whole, except for the chosen who retained autonomy to guide their species' destiny. Allery's position gave her unprecedented power, but also isolated her from both humans and her own kind. She revealed that the Kvar's aggressive expansion stemmed from an existential crisis. Their overmind was deteriorating, losing cohesion across light years of space, and they believed human-controlled territories contained key resources needed for their survival. Each piece of information she shared drew them closer, while widening the chasm of danger around them. Marcus understood now why the Kvar Council had agreed to negotiations despite their overwhelming military advantage. They needed Allery's unique perspective on human psychology to navigate these talks successfully. But this knowledge placed her in an impossible position to serve her people's needs while maintaining her growing connection to humanity. Their late-night conversations had never been casual. Each word she chose, each insight she shared, had been carefully calibrated to nudge both species toward coexistence. The weight of this revelation manifested physically in their interactions. Allery's bioluminescent patterns became erratic, betraying internal conflict that matched Marcus's turmoil. Professional distance shattered completely as they grappled with the implications of her dual role. During negotiations, she would sometimes translate not just words but underlying motivations, exposing vulnerabilities that made both sides uncomfortable. The human delegation grew suspicious of her helpfulness, while the Kvar Council began questioning her loyalty through increasingly intrusive psychic probes. Their stolen moments together became battlegrounds of conflicting loyalties. In the crystalline gardens of Epsilon 7's habitat dome, beneath artificial skies that mimicked Earth's dusk, they argued about duty and destiny. Allery explained how her people viewed individual relationships as irrelevant compared to species-level survival, yet her very presence contradicted this philosophy. Marcus struggled to reconcile his attraction to her with the knowledge that she might be manipulating him on behalf of her species. Each touch of her crystalline hand against his skin carried the electric charge of betrayal and truth simultaneously. Tensions escalated dramatically when Admiral Chen discovered Marcus's knowledge of Allery's true status. The human military command demanded immediate termination of their partnership, citing security risks and potential compromise of strategic information. Marcus found himself summoned to an emergency meeting where holographic projections of Earth's governing council stared down at him from the walls of the secure chamber. "You've endangered this entire mission," Secretary General Martinez stated coldly. "Every word she's translated, every glance you've shared, all potentially compromised." The situation worsened when the Kvar learned of the security breach. High Counselor Vorthkai issued a formal protest through new translators, claiming human aggression in probing their diplomatic channels. Negotiations ground to a halt as both sides retreated to fortified positions, their warships moving into strategic formations around Epsilon 7. The fragile peace they'd worked so hard to build teetered on collapse, with Marcus and Allery caught directly in the crossfire of suspicion. Allery's position became untenable. The Kvar Overmind subjected her to increasingly invasive examinations, testing her loyalty through psychic evaluations that left her physically weakened and emotionally drained. Marcus watched helplessly as her crystalline structure dimmed, her once brilliant patterns fading to dull echoes of their former vibrancy. Yet she refused to sever their connection, insisting that their relationship represented the only real hope for lasting peace between their species. The crisis reached its peak during a covert meeting arranged through back-channel communications. Using encrypted protocols, Marcus and Allery met in the abandoned maintenance tunnels beneath the negotiation complex. Here, away from prying eyes and listening devices, they finally confronted the full magnitude of their situation. Allery revealed that the Kvar Council had identified specific human colonies containing quantum anomalies essential for stabilizing their overmind. Without access to these locations, their civilization faced fragmentation and possible extinction within decades. Their conversation evolved into a desperate search for solutions that wouldn't doom either species. Allery proposed a radical plan: establish joint research facilities in the contested territories, allowing both humans and Kvar to study the quantum phenomena while ensuring neither side gained exclusive control. The idea carried enormous risks. It required unprecedented cooperation during a time of maximum distrust, and success depended entirely on their ability to sell this compromise to their respective leaderships. As they debated the proposal, their surroundings reflected the intensity of their discussion. Maintenance drones paused mid-flight, seemingly affected by the emotional resonance of their words. Emergency lighting cast long shadows that merged their forms into a single silhouette against the curved alloy walls. Each concession they hammered out felt like chipping away at mountains of prejudice and fear built over generations of conflict. Yet through it all, their connection strengthened, transforming from mere mutual attraction into something far more profound, a shared vision of coexistence that transcended species boundaries. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during a violent ion storm that swept through Epsilon 7's orbit. With communications disrupted and external pressures temporarily silenced, Marcus and Allery found themselves trapped in the observation deck, watching sheets of electromagnetic energy dance across the protective shields. In this moment of forced isolation, They realized their relationship had evolved beyond personal attraction or political necessity. They had become living embodiments of their species' potential for understanding. Drawing strength from this realization, they crafted their proposal with meticulous care. The Joint Research Initiative would begin with 3 pilot locations, each chosen for its unique quantum properties and strategic significance. Human scientists would work alongside HFY researchers in specially designed environments that accommodated both species' physiological needs. More importantly, these facilities would serve as diplomatic nodes, fostering direct interaction and gradual trust building between individuals from both civilizations. Presenting this plan proved equally challenging to both their peoples. The Human Security Council balked at the idea of sharing advanced research facilities, while the HFY overmind struggled with the concept of cooperative scientific inquiry rather than outright resource acquisition. Marcus and Allery became lightning rods for criticism, their relationship scrutinized through lenses of suspicion and fear. Media outlets on both sides painted their collaboration as either treasonous weakness or insidious manipulation, depending on the audience. Yet they persevered, drawing upon every ounce of credibility they'd built during months of negotiations. Marcus leveraged his reputation as a skilled diplomat, presenting detailed analyses of how the joint facilities could enhance human scientific capabilities while providing necessary safeguards. Allery utilized her status as one of the chosen, interfacing directly with the overmind to demonstrate how cooperative research could accelerate their understanding of quantum stabilization technologies. Their greatest challenge emerged when they had to address the core issue of territorial sovereignty. Through countless sleepless nights, they developed a revolutionary concept: quantum space leasing agreements that recognized both physical occupation and dimensional resonance rights. This hybrid approach allowed humans to maintain surface presence while acknowledging the HFY's legitimate needs for subspace resources. The complexity of the arrangement required unprecedented legal frameworks and monitoring systems, but it created a foundation for peaceful coexistence that honored both species' perspectives. Implementation began with cautious optimism, though resistance remained fierce on both sides. Construction crews from Earth and HFY engineering swarms worked in uneasy proximity, their activities monitored by armed guards and psychic sentinels alike. Marcus and Allery spent long hours mediating disputes, their presence often the only factor preventing minor conflicts from escalating into violence. They established daily communication protocols that included both official briefings and informal exchanges, gradually building networks of personal connections between workers from both species. The first major test came when a human construction team inadvertently damaged a HFY subspace node during excavation. Panic rippled through both camps as centuries of mistrust threatened to overwhelm recent progress. Marcus and Allery rushed to the site, their arrival immediately calming the situation through sheer force of their combined authority. Working together, they demonstrated how the damage could be repaired using a combination of human engineering techniques and HFY biocrystalline technology, transforming what could have been a disaster into a showcase of successful cooperation. Scientific collaboration proved equally challenging. Initial joint experiments produced frustrating results as fundamental differences in methodology clashed. Human scientists approached problems through linear experimentation and peer review, while HFY researchers operated through intuitive consensus and psychic linkages. Allery played crucial roles in bridging these gaps, helping each side appreciate the strengths of the other's approach. Under her guidance, they developed hybrid research protocols that combined rigorous documentation with instantaneous data sharing through psychic interfaces. The most significant breakthrough occurred when combined human HFY teams discovered a previously unknown property of quantum entanglement that benefited both species. This achievement generated genuine excitement among researchers, leading to increased willingness to share knowledge and resources. Marcus observed how simple acts of cooperation, sharing meals, celebrating breakthroughs, mourning setbacks together, gradually eroded centuries of hostility. Scientists from both species began forming friendships that transcended their official roles, creating informal support networks that reinforced the official peace efforts. Security remained a constant concern, with both sides maintaining defensive positions around the research sites. However, Marcus and Allery implemented innovative monitoring systems that provided transparency without compromising operational security. They established joint command centers where human officers and Kvar sentinels worked side by side, developing mutual respect through shared responsibilities. These arrangements created precedents for future cooperation in other areas of interspecies relations. Despite mounting successes, opposition forces gathered strength in both camps. Within human space, nationalist factions decried the joint research initiatives as surrender to alien domination. Powerful corporate interests denied exclusive access to quantum technologies, funded covert operations aimed at sabotaging the projects. Marcus faced constant pressure from Earth's government to prove the program's worth while defending against accusations of treasonous behavior. Rumors circulated about his relationship with Allery, painting their professional partnership as a threat to human sovereignty. The Kvar resistance proved equally formidable. Traditionalist factions within the Overmind viewed cooperation with humans as contamination of their pure evolutionary path. They launched psychic campaigns to undermine Allery's influence, spreading doubts about her loyalty and judgment. Some went further, attempting to disrupt the research facilities through subtle manipulations of quantum fields, creating dangerous instabilities that threatened both species' personnel. Allery endured intense scrutiny from her people's collective consciousness, her every action analyzed for signs of human contamination. Personal attacks intensified as their relationship became public knowledge. Human media sensationalized their interactions, while Kvar information networks broadcast distorted interpretations of their partnership. Security measures around their living quarters expanded exponentially, yet failed to prevent incidents. Anonymous threats arrived through encrypted channels, warning of dire consequences if they continued their collaboration. Both found themselves waking to strange noises in the night, discovering surveillance devices in private spaces, and facing hostile confrontations in supposedly secure areas. The most dangerous moment came when a group of rogue human operatives infiltrated the primary research facility, intent on destroying critical quantum containment systems. Marcus and Allery barely escaped harm as chaos erupted throughout the complex. Their quick thinking prevented catastrophic failure, but the incident exposed fatal flaws in existing security protocols. Recovery efforts forced them to implement even more restrictive measures, creating an atmosphere of paranoia that threatened to undo months of careful relationship building between their peoples. Through it all, their personal connection deepened rather than diminished. Shared danger forged bonds stronger than any political alliance. They developed coded languages and secret meeting places, finding ways to maintain their partnership despite increasing surveillance. Late-night discussions about quantum mechanics evolved into intimate exchanges about their respective cultures and histories. Each survived assassination attempts only to emerge more committed to their shared vision of peace, understanding that their relationship had become symbolically vital to the entire peace process. The turning point arrived during the annual Convergence Festival, a Kvar tradition marking their species' unity with the quantum field. Held in the crystalline caverns beneath Epsilon 7, the ceremony involved intricate light displays and harmonic resonances that humans typically found incomprehensible. This year, however, Allery convinced the Overmind to allow limited human participation, seeing an opportunity to demonstrate the potential of interspecies cooperation. Marcus worked tirelessly to prepare his colleagues for the event, explaining its significance while managing expectations about what they might experience. As the festival began, crystalline structures throughout the caverns began pulsing with synchronized light patterns, creating waves of color that seemed to bend space itself. Human attendees initially maintained polite detachment, recording observations and taking measurements. Then Allery initiated a daring experiment. She linked her consciousness to both the Overmind and Marcus simultaneously, creating a bridge that allowed human minds to perceive the quantum symphony directly. The effect proved overwhelming yet transformative, as participants experienced firsthand the beauty and complexity of Kvar's spiritual connection to the universe. This shared experience catalyzed profound changes in both communities. Researchers who had previously dismissed Kvar methods as inefficient began incorporating elements of their quantum intuition into experimental designs. Kvar scientists, in turn, embraced human analytical approaches, recognizing value in systematic documentation and peer review. Joint publications started appearing in both species academic journals, while cross-cultural educational programs flourished. Workers from both species formed genuine friendships, organizing regular exchange programs and collaborative projects that extended beyond official duties. Marcus and Allery found themselves at the center of this cultural revolution, their relationship serving as both inspiration and practical example of successful integration. They organized regular gatherings where humans and Kvar could share artistic expressions, culinary traditions, and philosophical perspectives. These events evolved into vibrant celebrations of diversity that attracted participants from across both civilizations. Even traditionalists who initially opposed cooperation began attending, drawn by the undeniable evidence of mutual benefit and enrichment. The transformation extended beyond personal interactions to institutional levels. New organizations emerged dedicated to promoting interspecies understanding, while existing institutions adapted their practices to accommodate both species' needs. Economic partnerships developed naturally as businesses recognized advantages in combined human-Kvar ventures. Political structures evolved to include representatives from both species in decision-making processes related to shared territories and resources. The momentum of change proved unstoppable, driven by countless small victories and shared experiences that accumulated into fundamental shifts in perspective. Just as hope seemed brightest, tragedy struck without warning. A mysterious quantum anomaly emerged in the vicinity of the primary research facility, manifesting as a rapidly expanding sphere of destabilized spacetime. Analysis revealed it to be a previously unknown phenomenon, a tear in the quantum fabric that threatened to consume both species' presence in the region. Worse still, evidence suggested the anomaly might spread along subspace resonance lines, potentially endangering entire sectors of space occupied by both civilizations. The crisis forced Marcus and Allery to confront their deepest fears about their relationship's impact on their respective peoples. Human authorities demanded immediate evacuation of all personnel, viewing the anomaly as proof of Kvar recklessness in pursuing quantum research. The Kvar overmind, meanwhile, suspected human interference or sabotage, pointing to classified research projects that Marcus couldn't fully disclose without violating security protocols. Trust, so painstakingly built over months, began fracturing under the pressure of survival instincts. Their personal connection became both sanctuary and crucible as they worked around the clock to understand and contain the anomaly. Long hours in the Emergency Command Center transformed into intense debates about responsibility and sacrifice. Allery's crystalline structure began showing stress fractures, literal manifestations of the strain between her loyalty to Marcus and her duty to her people. Marcus suffered from chronic insomnia, haunted by visions of Earth's destruction should the anomaly reach human space. The situation reached breaking point when both sides prepared military responses to the crisis. Human warships took up defensive positions around colony worlds, while Kvar battle fleets mobilized to protect their quantum nodes. Marcus and Allery found themselves delivering ultimatums rather than solutions, their voices carrying the weight of impending catastrophe. Private conversations turned into heated arguments about acceptable losses and proportional responses, each trying to shield their species from worst-case scenarios. In a moment of desperation, they locked themselves in the prototype quantum containment chamber, surrounded by experimental equipment that might solve the crisis or accelerate it. Here, stripped of titles and responsibilities, they faced the raw truth of their situation. The anomaly represented more than a physical threat. It embodied the fundamental differences between their species that they'd struggled to bridge. Its emergence forced them to question whether their relationship had been a catalyst for understanding or simply delayed an inevitable confrontation between incompatible civilizations. Within the containment chamber, Marcus and Allery devised a radical solution that combined human engineering principles with Kvar quantum manipulation techniques. They proposed creating a stable quantum lattice around the anomaly, essentially freezing its expansion while allowing controlled study and gradual dissipation. The plan required unprecedented cooperation, with human technicians operating specialized equipment while KFAR researchers maintained direct psychic links to the quantum field. Most controversially, it demanded that Marcus and Allery serve as the central nodes in this network, their unique connection providing the necessary bridge between species-specific technologies. Implementing the solution proved even more challenging than anticipated. Calibration of equipment required precise timing and absolute trust, as any misstep could trigger catastrophic feedback loops. Marcus coordinated human teams while Allery interfaced with KFAR specialists, their mental link becoming the crucial element holding the entire operation together. They develop a complex system of verbal and nonverbal signals, allowing them to communicate instantly across species barriers during critical moments. Hours blended into days as they worked in perfect synchronization, their physical proximity becoming essential for maintaining the delicate balance of energies. The technical challenges paled compared to the emotional toll. Each adjustment of the lattice brought them closer to resolution while simultaneously highlighting the impossibility of their relationship. Allery's bioluminescent patterns began reflecting quantum fluctuations in real time, creating visual representations of their intertwined fates. Marcus found himself interpreting these displays intuitively, understanding her emotional state through colors and patterns rather than words. Their physical contact became necessary for stabilizing certain phases of the operation, forcing them to acknowledge the depth of their connection while preparing for its inevitable end. As the containment field stabilized, they faced the reality of their situation with clarity born of exhaustion and shared purpose. The lattice required constant monitoring and adjustment, demanding their complete dedication to its maintenance. Yet their presence at the heart of this operation made them targets for renewed political attacks from both sides. Security footage of their work together, intended for technical review, became propaganda tools for those seeking to undermine the peace process. Rumors spread of inappropriate intimacy during critical operations, threatening to discredit their entire endeavor. The final phase of implementation coincided with a solar alignment that amplified quantum energies throughout the region. Working within this heightened field, Marcus and Allery achieved something extraordinary. They created a temporary zone of quantum stability that allowed direct observation of the anomaly's core. This breakthrough provided crucial data for developing long-term solutions while demonstrating the viability of interspecies cooperation at its most fundamental level. Yet it also revealed the true cost of their success. Their unique connection, so vital for this achievement, marked them as anomalies themselves, unable to fully belong to either species' society. With the immediate crisis contained, Marcus and Allery found themselves summoned to separate emergency councils. Human leaders demanded explanations for their unprecedented actions, while the KFAR overmind required justification for their extensive use of psychic resources. Each faced allegations of prioritizing personal relationship over species loyalty, with security advisors on both sides presenting detailed analyses of how their partnership had compromised official protocols. The very success of their quantum lattice solution became evidence against them, cited as proof that their relationship posed unacceptable risks to future cooperation. Public reactions mirrored this official condemnation. Human media outlets published exposes detailing their every interaction, framing their collaboration as reckless endangerment of Earth's security. KFAR information networks broadcast continuous analysis of Allery's deviant behavior, with traditionalist factions calling for her permanent disconnection from the overmind. Former allies in both communities distanced themselves publicly, while private messages of support dried up under political pressure. Their living quarters became virtual prisons, surrounded by layers of security personnel and monitoring equipment. The personal cost mounted relentlessly. Allery's crystalline structure began deteriorating rapidly, her body struggling to maintain coherence under the strain of divided loyalties. Marcus developed psychosomatic symptoms from prolonged exposure to quantum fields, experiencing vivid nightmares that blurred the line between human and KFAR consciousness. Their attempts to meet privately triggered security alerts, forcing them to communicate through increasingly elaborate codes and intermediaries. Even their professional interactions became suspect, with both sides assigning additional handlers to monitor their every move. Most devastating was the erosion of trust among those they'd worked closest with. Research teams they'd mentored began questioning their methods, while diplomatic staff who'd supported their initiatives suddenly found reasons to transfer to other postings. The networks of personal connections they'd painstakingly built collapsed under the weight of suspicion and political maneuvering. Each day brought new revelations about surveillance operations targeting their relationship, confirming that neither species' leadership had ever fully trusted their partnership. Yet through this darkness, their bond paradoxically strengthened. Shared persecution created deeper understanding of each other's cultural burdens. Marcus learned to interpret the subtle shifts in Allari's crystalline structure that indicated stress or fatigue, while she became attuned to the minute changes in his posture and tone that revealed emotional states. Their coded communications evolved into a rich private language that preserved intimacy despite external pressures. Each obstacle overcome together added another layer to their connection, making separation increasingly unthinkable even as it became inevitable. The final confrontation occurred during a mandatory joint review of the containment operations aftermath. Seated in opposing chambers connected by quantum communication arrays, Marcus and Allari faced panels of their respective leaders, each demanding answers about their conduct during the crisis. Evidence presented included detailed logs of their interactions, sensor readings documenting their physical proximity during critical operations, and psychological profiles highlighting their excessive emotional investment in each other's well-being. Both sets of authorities agreed on one point: their relationship constituted an unacceptable risk to future diplomatic relations. Human representatives emphasized the security breaches inherent in their partnership, citing instances where classified information had likely been exchanged through their mental link. The HFY Council focused on Allari's deviation from prescribed protocols, particularly her unauthorized modifications to overmind interfaces during critical moments. Both sides presented comprehensive plans for separating their operations, including proposals for independent monitoring stations and strictly regulated communication channels. The message was clear: their unique collaboration would end, regardless of its proven effectiveness. Faced with this ultimatum, Marcus and Allari made their final, most difficult decision. Drawing upon every ounce of credibility earned through months of service, they proposed a solution that acknowledged the validity of their leaders' concerns while preserving the essence of what they'd achieved. They volunteered to permanently station themselves at the containment facility, serving as dedicated monitors of the quantum lattice while maintaining strict professional distance. This arrangement would satisfy security requirements by removing them from mainstream diplomatic channels while preserving their unique ability to bridge species differences when absolutely necessary. The proposal sparked intense debate, with security experts from both sides analyzing its implications. Eventually, a modified version was accepted. They would remain at the facility under constant supervision, communicating through officially sanctioned channels and maintaining minimal physical contact. Regular psychological evaluations would ensure their emotional attachment didn't compromise their judgment, while rotating support teams would handle most day-to-day operations. Their relationship would continue, but only as a professional partnership stripped of personal intimacy. As the terms were finalized, they found themselves alone in the containment chamber one last time. The quantum lattice pulsed around them, a reminder of both their greatest achievement and their ultimate sacrifice. Allari's crystalline form shone with bittersweet luminescence as they discussed the details of their new reality. Marcus memorized every nuance of her quantum signature, knowing that future interactions would be mediated by layers of protocol and surveillance. Together, they established new routines that would allow them to function effectively while respecting their self-imposed boundaries. Settling into their new reality proved more challenging than anticipated. The containment facility, once a place of innovation and discovery, transformed into a gilded cage under the watchful eyes of rotating security teams. Marcus and Allari developed precise schedules that minimized direct interaction, communicating primarily through official reports and scheduled briefings. Quantum monitoring stations were reconfigured to allow independent operation, with automated systems handling most routine tasks. Yet despite these restrictions, their connection persisted through subtle means. The way Allari adjusted environmental controls to match Marcus's preferred temperature range, or how he timed his meal breaks to coincide with her maintenance cycles. Life within the facility evolved into a complex dance of professional distance and covert intimacy. They established secret rituals known only to them, certain sequences of equipment checks that carried hidden meanings, patterns of movement through the corridors that allowed fleeting shared glances. Their mental link, once a free-flowing channel of communication, became a tightly controlled conduit used exclusively for operational purposes. Yet during critical adjustments to the quantum lattice, when protocols demanded their simultaneous presence at key nodes, their connection would flare to life with remembered intensity before retreating behind enforced barriers. The surrounding environment reflected their changed circumstances. Once vibrant communal spaces now stood mostly empty, their furniture rearranged to discourage casual interaction. Holographic displays showed only essential data, stripped of the personal touches they'd once added. Security cameras tracked every movement, their red lights constant reminders of the price paid for peace. Yet in the quiet moments between official duties, when rotating staff retreated to their quarters and automated systems handled routine monitoring, the facility would briefly transform back into their shared sanctuary. Their resilience inspired others to find ways to maintain the spirit of cooperation despite increased restrictions. Researchers from both species developed innovative methods for remote collaboration, creating virtual environments that preserved elements of their previous direct interaction. Support staff established unofficial channels for sharing cultural insights and personal experiences, keeping alive the flame of understanding they'd ignited. Even security personnel, initially hostile to their presence, began demonstrating subtle signs of acceptance, occasionally turning cameras away during moments of necessary closeness. Time flowed differently in their isolated existence. Days stretched into weeks, marked by the rhythm of lattice maintenance and periodic inspections from oversight committees. Each visit from external reviewers brought fresh scrutiny of their arrangement, requiring renewed demonstrations of professional detachment. Yet these assessments also provided opportunities to showcase the ongoing success of their solution, reinforcing the value of their sacrifice. Through it all, they maintained their commitment to the larger mission, finding meaning in the preservation of peace even as they mourned their lost intimacy. Months turned into years within the containment facility, and Marcus and Allery witnessed the gradual evolution of human-Kavar relations through filtered reports and occasional visitors. Their sacrifice became legend, cited in diplomatic circles as proof that even the deepest divisions could be bridged through commitment to common goals. New generations of researchers arrived at the facility, bringing fresh perspectives and innovative ideas that built upon their foundational work. These young scientists, unburdened by the prejudices of the past, treated their presence as inspirational rather than problematic, seeking their guidance on matters far beyond quantum containment. The quantum lattice itself transformed from emergency solution to cornerstone of interspecies cooperation. Its success inspired similar projects across contested territories, each adapting the original design to local conditions while maintaining core principles of shared responsibility. Humans and Kvar developed complementary technologies that enhanced rather than duplicated each other's capabilities, creating economic incentives for continued collaboration. Trade routes established for maintenance supplies evolved into regular exchange networks, while joint security protocols became models for conflict resolution in other disputed areas. Cultural exchange programs flourished, with artists and philosophers joining scientists in exploring the possibilities of interspecies understanding. Literature and music emerged that incorporated elements from both traditions, creating hybrid forms that resonated with audiences across species boundaries. Educational institutions developed curricula focusing on successful cooperation techniques, while historians documented their story as a turning point in galactic relations. Even traditionalist factions, initially opposed to their partnership, began acknowledging its positive impact on overall stability. Their personal legacy manifested in unexpected ways. Young diplomats studied their methods of conflict resolution, while security experts analyzed their ability to maintain professional distance without losing mutual trust. The very restrictions imposed on their relationship became case studies in managing high-risk diplomatic situations. Stories of their sacrifices inspired others to seek creative solutions to long-standing conflicts, proving that even the most rigid boundaries could yield to determined cooperation. As their influence spread, they found meaning in their separation, understanding that their personal loss had enabled broader understanding. On the 10th anniversary of the quantum lattice's activation, Marcus and Allery received permission for a final meeting outside the containment facility. Age had touched them differently. Marcus bore visible signs of human mortality, while Allery's crystalline structure had matured into patterns of wisdom and endurance. They met in the same crystalline garden where they'd first discussed their impossible future, now transformed into a monument to peace featuring elements from both species' architectural traditions. The air hummed with the presence of countless beings who owed their safety to the choices made here years ago. Their conversation flowed easily, unconstrained by need for translation or explanation. Decades of shared experience had created a language beyond words, where understanding passed through quantum fields and emotional resonance. They spoke of achievements that had grown from their sacrifice, alliances formed, lives saved, knowledge shared. Yet beneath this satisfaction lay the unspoken acknowledgement of paths not taken, lives not lived together. Allery's bioluminescent patterns told stories that needed no interpretation, while Marcus's weathered hands described futures that would remain unwritten. As they prepared to part for the last time, they activated a final gift to future generations, a quantum archive containing their complete records of cooperation, failures, and triumphs. This repository would serve as guide and warning for those who followed, preserving the lessons of their journey while protecting sensitive information. They programmed it to activate only when both human and KVAR researchers worked together, ensuring their legacy would always depend on mutual effort. The archive's activation sequence created a momentary quantum entanglement that, for a brief instant, allowed them to touch without restriction. Returning to their separate lives, they carried forward the knowledge that their sacrifice had meant something greater than personal happiness. Marcus resumed his diplomatic career, mentoring young negotiators in the art of finding common ground. Allery rejoined the Overmind's Council, advocating for continued cooperation while honoring her species' traditions. Though physically separated, their connection remained strong through the lattice they'd created, a living testament to the possibility of understanding between even the most different of beings. Their story became legend, not of tragic love lost, but of love transformed into something enduring and universal. Their choice reminds us that true love sometimes means letting go for the greater good. That sacrifice can create bridges where none seemed possible. Remember their story whenever you face impossible choices, because sometimes saving the world means breaking your own heart. If you enjoyed this tale of courage and sacrifice among the stars, please subscribe for more stories that explore the boundless possibilities of science fiction romance. Who knows what other adventures await in the vastness of space?